This is one of the most terrifying things that children have to deal with during wartime, something that we don't hear about often. It's also incredibly painful for those who work in pediatrics. But what exactly is it? Let's get started. 10. Childhood trauma. This is something that happens to every child during wartime, even if they aren't directly attacked. When kids are born in a war zone or live through the horror of armed conflicts, they experience trauma just like anyone else. Exposure to traumatic events can take a serious toll on a person's psychological well-being, leading to conditions like post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression. But it doesn't have to be just witnessing an attack to cause this kind of damage. Even hearing gunshots or sirens can trigger these issues in children. These constant stressors affect their brain development, which is already fragile at such a young age. In some cases, children become withdrawn and stop speaking altogether. They may suffer from nightmares, flashbacks, and intense fear. Some turn violent, acting out their trauma on others. And in the worst cases, kids who've experienced this trauma attempt suicide. It's not uncommon for children in war-torn countries to be psychologically scarred for life. 9. Lack of medical care. When there's a war going on, medical care becomes pretty much non-existent. Doctors can't do their jobs properly because they're too busy treating those injured by the fighting. Plus, hospitals are often targeted by the military. This means that regular checkups and vaccinations are canceled. It's a real problem because kids need these checkups to stay healthy. They need immunizations to prevent diseases from spreading. And if there's no one around to look after them, their health can deteriorate quickly. This lack of health care leads to more deaths among children in war zones than the actual fighting. The World Health Organization reports that in some countries where there's ongoing conflict, up to 60% of kids under the age of 5 don't get the vaccines they need. And that means they're vulnerable to deadly diseases like measles and polio. It's a scary thought, but these diseases can easily wipe out entire communities of children. On top of that, parents struggle to feed their kids nutritious food, which makes it even harder for them to stay strong and healthy. 8. Becoming soldiers. Child soldiers are sadly a common sight in many war-torn regions. These are kids who've been taken from their families and forced to join the fight. They're given weapons and told to kill or be killed themselves. It's a terrible situation, and these kids have no choice but to follow orders. Sometimes they're just used as human shields, protecting soldiers from harm. But they can also be made to carry heavy loads or serve as messengers, delivering important information between military bases. And in some cases, child soldiers are trained to be assassins, taught how to sneak around and eliminate targets without being detected. They're also used as suicide bombers, sent on missions where they detonate explosives and cause massive casualties. These kids don't know what's happening. They're just following orders from people they believe are in charge. No, it's a dark part of war that many people don't talk about, but it's something that needs to be stopped. 7. Starvation and malnutrition. When there's a war going on, getting enough to eat can be tough. Food supplies can get cut off and prices can go up, making it hard for families to put meals on the table. On top of that, kids in war zones might not be able to eat healthy foods like fruits and veggies, since they're not available or too expensive. Instead, they end up eating lots of carbs and sugary snacks which aren't good for their bodies. As a result, many kids in war-torn areas become malnourished, meaning they don't get the nutrients they need to grow and be active. Studies show that malnutrition can affect a child's development, making it harder for them to learn and causing them to miss out on important vitamins and minerals. This can make kids weaker and more likely to get sick. In some cases, malnutrition can even lead to death. It's a sad reality for those living in war-torn areas, but it's something that needs to be addressed to protect the next generation. 6. Losing their parents. It's heartbreaking to think about, but some kids in war-torn regions lose both parents during the conflict. This can happen in a number of ways. Perhaps their parents were killed in an attack, or maybe they had to flee and leave their children behind. Whatever the reason, it leaves these kids without the love and support of their family, which can have a big impact on their lives. Imagine being just a kid and having to figure out where your next meal is coming from, or where you've gone sleep at night. It's not easy, especially when you don't know what's going on around you. Kids who lose their parents in war become separated from their support system, and are left to navigate the world on their own. They may end up living on the streets trying to survive by begging or stealing. Some are lucky enough to find foster families who can take care of them, but others aren't so fortunate. This is a sad reality for some kids, but it's important to remember that they are still resilient and can overcome these challenges if given the right support. No. 5. Becoming refugees. When there's a war going on, some families have to leave their homes and become refugees. They might cross borders into neighboring countries in search of safety, but they're not always welcomed with open arms. In some cases, refugees face discrimination and violence in their new home. This can make it hard for them to find a place to live or even get a job. Many families end up living in overcrowded refugee camps where conditions can be unsanitary, and there may not be enough food and water for everyone. Being a refugee can be a scary and uncertain time for kids. They may have to leave behind everything they know and love, including their friends, school, and familiar surroundings. This can cause a lot of stress and anxiety for children, as well as feelings of grief and loss. But despite these challenges, refugees are incredibly resilient, adapt to their new environments, and strive to build a better future for themselves and their kids. Number 4. Sexual abuse. Sadly, sexual abuse is something that happens to many women during wartime. When there's a war going on, there's a lot of chaos and violence, and people can be at their most desperate and vulnerable. Unfortunately, some people take advantage of this and engage in sexual violence as a way to exert power and control over others. This can include rape, sexual slavery, and other forms of sexual exploitation. It's a terrible thing that happens, and it can have a lasting impact on the survivors. For women, sexual abuse during wartime can cause physical injuries and health problems. It can also lead to psychological trauma, making it difficult to trust others and causing emotional distress. And when women are taken away from their families and forced into sexual slavery, it tears apart families and communities. It's a violation of human rights, and it causes immense suffering. No. 3. Unexploded bombs. War means bombs and bullets flying everywhere. But here's the thing. Sometimes these dangerous things don't explode right away. They can stay in the ground or hidden in buildings, just waiting to cause damage. That's a serious problem because kids who do know what these objects are might pick them up and play with them. Imagine a child playing with a bomb and then it explodes. It's a nightmare scenario, but it happens all the time in war-torn countries. Unexploded bombs and landmines can be found in places where there's been fighting, in gardens, parks, and even playgrounds. They're often camouflaged, so they're hard to spot. But curious kids might stumble upon them and not realize how dangerous they are. It's a tough situation for those living in war-torn areas. But it's important to raise awareness so that people know how to stay safe. Educating children about the dangers of unexploded bombs and teaching them what to do if they find one can help prevent accidents and keep everyone safe. Number 2. Suicide bombers. Suicide bombings are a terrible tactic used in many conflicts around the world. When a bomber detonates explosives on purpose, it causes a lot of pain and suffering. Not only does it take innocent lives, but it also affects the families and communities of the victims. What makes it even worse is when children are involved. Imagine a child being manipulated and used as a suicide bomber. Such a tragic situation, and it highlights the cruelty of war. When a child is turned into a suicide bomber, it's usually done by groups or individuals who use deception and manipulation to exploit their innocence. These children are often brainwashed into believing that the mission is a noble cause and that they're helping their country or religion. But in reality, they're being used as pawns in a deadly game. No. 1. Being banned from school. Education is crucial for everyone, but sadly, some kids in war-torn areas don't have access to schools. Due to the conflict, schools might be destroyed or teachers may not be able to do their jobs properly. On top of that, there may be curfews or safety concerns that make it hard for kids to get to school. Even if schools are still operating, many children are unable to attend due to factors such as poverty, displacement, or the need to work to help their families survive. When kids are banned from school, it has a major impact on their lives. It limits their chances of getting a job in the future and prevents them from learning essential skills. Education is key to breaking the cycle of poverty and creating a better future. But without access to schools, many children are left behind. That's all for now. See you next time.